Hello, good morning. Hi,
Okay.
hi.
Again,
How
good.
are you? I can hear you now.
Okay.
How is everybody?
I'm
Good.
fine.
Good.
Awesome. It's very nice to see you. Sherry, how have you been? How's your eyesight? Can you hear me?
It looks like
No.
maybe.
Okay. So it's nice to see everybody. What's new?
The sun and the earth keep rotating.
I just introduced Elevate.ac to Lake Forest Graduate School of Management, and their Center for Leadership is been growing while the MBA program has been dying. And so the woman that's in charge of all of operations for the Center for Leadership, I said, go to elevate.ac and look at what's there. When you need speakers, let me know and I'll make introductions. In other words, I'll put them in touch with you, Victoria, so you can make.
Okay. Okay, wonderful. Perfect. That
sounds
sounds great.
Sounds like a great place to be.
Oh, it is. And Annika, I talked about you to this lady. So I said, hey, you want to talk to a doctor from Sweden who deals with kinds of interesting issues on well-being and that? We'll get you in touch with Dr. Annika. So she's going to be looking up your profile.
That's good.
Yes, that's awesome.
More of that, please.
Annika, you're coming to the States soon, right? What's driving that trip?
I'm coming to the States in early October. I'm going to an event that is it's an organization called NAVBO. It's National Association Women Working Women something.
Gotcha.
Are you going with Anna too?
No, she's not coming. I'm a member of that organization. I've been for a few years. I've been to one of their head events before, and it was the most fun event that I ever been to. It was just so many cool things going on, and everyone was so nice, and I just felt so included. So I think I want to go again. So that's what I'm doing.
Good
for you.
Cool.
That's awesome, Annika. You have to let us know how that goes.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're going to be seeing posts on LinkedIn.
I tried to get a speaking spot, but I didn't.
It's okay. You can still have fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I'll ask for it next year too, and the next year, and the next year.
Awesome. So hi, Sabrina. Hi, Gina. How are you guys?
Gals.
Ladies,
Guys,
I'm sorry.
Guys is fine. I got no problem with guys.
It's difficult to keep up.
Dude.
No.
Yeah.
Just call me dude. Dude, dudette, chick, whatever. I don't care. It's fine by me.
Ladies, I'll go with ladies.
I'm no lady. Don't call me lady.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if I'm a lady either.
I call myself a pilot chick, so chick is cool.
Okay, love that. We have Jim. Hi, Jim. If you feel comfortable turning on your camera and your audio, it would be lovely. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, great meeting you too. I'm in the middle of doing some stuff right now, so I'm not going to use the camera, but I'll be listening in.
Oh, all right, no problem. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm Jim Kerr. I'm a management consultant, leadership coach. I've been doing this for about 30 years. I've got a few product offerings out there on the platform and interested to learn what the speakers have to say today.
Okay, Jim, where are you located?
I'm in Connecticut.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jim. We have John Adrich coming in as well. All right. So let's get started. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us today. A very warm welcome to those of you that took an hour of your day to come, and also for those of you watching the replay or that will be watching the replay. Thank you as well. We hope you can join next week's session. We have Michelle coming in as well. So summer vacation is almost over. Robert is still spending some time with family. He's going to be back in the office this Monday. So we're going to be seeing him again on Fridays, on next Friday's workshop, and everything will be back to normal. Hi, Michelle.
Hi,
How are
everyone.
you?
Pretty good, thank you. How are you doing, guys?
Good.
Great. Thank you very much for asking. Okay, perfect. So we have Jim. So John says, hi all, I have to be on another call at 3:30, so please excuse me. No problem, John. Thank you very much for joining. We have Stephanie coming in. So Jim is new here, and for the new ones watching the replay, I'm going to talk a little bit about Elevate. So Elevate is a growing community of the best speakers, trainers, facilitators, and coaches in the US, Canada, UK. We also have in Sweden, Australia, worldwide. Hi, Sherry. How are you? The idea is to deliver customized, on-demand help for businesses globally. So we've created the platform, the Elevate 3.0 platform, to create like a vetted group that any organization can access to gain outside help for any and every business challenge. So right now we work very hard on a daily basis to drive traffic to the site and contact potential clients and companies to win business for the speakers. We have Kevin coming in. He's also new. Hi, Kevin. We can't hear you. How are you? There you go.
Got too many mute buttons.
Nice to meet you. How are you?
Likewise, doing well. Thank you very much. How are you?
Awesome. I'm doing very well as well. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. What are you asking for other than my name? I'm Kevin McNulty. I'm a coach and author and speaker, and I also have a podcast.
Awesome.
And I work primarily in the personal growth, personal professional growth arena. And there you have it.
And where are you located?
That's awesome.
Kevin?
Oh, I'm out of Nashville.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, I think everybody, there's a lot of people in the US. I'm located in Colombia, South America. Everybody should come here. It's wonderful. Annika, are you right now? Where are you right now?
I'm in Sweden, at home, in my summer house.
Oh, okay, okay. Are you with family?
My husband.
Okay, that's wonderful. So as I was saying, what we're seeking is to create a vetted group that any organization can contact in order to solve any issues that they may be experiencing in the workplace. Right now, we're managing 120 elite speakers and we're growing every day. What we do is offer 2 workshops during the week. We have this one, and we also have an Elevate Tips and Tricks workshop. And what I do is give a general tour through the site, talk about frequently asked questions. We talk about SEO best practices, keyword research, something that's called keyword stuffing, and why it isn't the best practice to do on a website. We also talk about best practices for URLs, how to optimize images for a website, how to price, and etc. Those are just some of the topics that we talk about on that workshop. And then we have this workshop on Fridays that I really like because people come in, join in, they introduce themselves, and it's like a space to network, to talk about different topics, learn something new from one another. Normally, Robert gives updates on our current strategy, new business, enterprise sales, etc. So for example, today, we're going to have Bill Welter, and he's going to be talking about, well, his topic is Chance Favors a Prepared Mind, 8 Enduring Skills. And this is an overview of a workshop that he's presented globally since his first book, The Prepared Mind of a Leader, was released in 2006. So he's going to be talking about skills that are needed at all levels of leadership. And although they may seem obvious, they're often underutilized in many organizations, whether it's in the US, in Canada, in China, Japan, Europe, etc. So he's going to be talking about 8 skills while he tells us 8 stories. Next week, we're going to have John Adridge with why 50% of people in business survive despite their best efforts not to, and the other half fail. So we really hope you can join us for that as well. We have an Elevate hashtag, and we try to be very active on LinkedIn. We use that hashtag. I'm going to be sending it in the chat box. So if you are able to follow and keep up with our updates, we just had, hi Samantha, how are you?
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Where are you located?
Washington, D.C.
Wonderful. Okay, so as I was mentioning, the Elevate hashtag is now in the chat box. So make sure to look out for the posts coming up. I try to send emails once we make a post to look out for those, but I keep it not too many emails because I don't want to spam everybody. So every Friday, as I was mentioning, we have a member volunteer to share valuable information, something valuable that can help everybody in their professional or their personal lives. So if you're interested in giving a 20-minute introduction to a topic of your expertise on a Friday workshop for October or November, please let me know. And without further ado, if you would like to continue, Bill.
I got it. Okay.
Awesome.
All righty. So hold on a second while I do the screen share routine. And let's find that. Share that.
Perfect.
Okay, let's make that big. Come on, get big. There we go. Okay. So prepared mind of leader. I'll get right to the point on this one. Me, 5 years in the Marine Corps, 5 years doing real engineering, 30 some years doing consulting, and now I do education and things such as that. At one point in my consulting career, I was wondering, why am I sitting in this conference room across the table from people who are better educated than me? I look across the table and there's this guy's got an MBA from Stanford and she's got an MBA from Harvard. And I'm thinking, why the heck do they need help? And I came across Louis Pasteur's quote of chance favors the prepared mind. And I started thinking about, what does it mean to have a prepared mind? I did a workshop at Northwestern University in Chicago. And then out of the blue, I got a letter from a literary agent in Boston that said, what a great topic for a book. If you're interested in writing a book, I'd like to represent you. Well, I had been interested, but I never found a way to do it, but then I did it. And my co-author, Jeannie Eggman, is the professor I was doing the workshop for. So that's that. This turns out to be a workshop that I can spend a day or 2 days on, and you're going to get it in 20 minutes. But it's, as Sherry Wynn will be happy, it's not going to be about me, it's going to be about stories. Okay, so there we go. There's 8 skills. I'm going to go through these 8 skills, but I'm going to tell you right now, they are intellectually obvious. But I know from doing workshops globally, United States, China, Europe, South America, 3 of them are underutilized in many organizations. So I'll get to that at the tail end of this thing. Story. It's 1803. I want you to imagine that you are Thomas Jefferson, okay? And he is basically trying to figure out what lies between Missouri and Pacific. Why? Well, he just bought it. This little guy by the name of Napoleon is in the midst of a war and he's running out of money. And he needs money, he needs gold. And so Jefferson says, you know this land that you've got that's over here? How about if I buy it for $10 million? And Napoleon said yes, and he did it. And by the way, Jefferson did not go to Congress, he just did it. And now he's got to figure out what the heck is out there. There's a lot of stuff. And so the question is, who do you pick and how do you prepare this person? Well, if we were in a classroom together, we would go through the who do you pick, but it turns out to be Meriwether Lewis. Lewis had been his aide de camp when Jefferson was a general. But here's the cool part. He's got this guy who's a military dude, and then he brings him in and he tutors him in, as you can see the list, botany, geography, mineralogy, astronomy, and ethnology, and figure out what are these people that are doing out there. And you say, why the heck does Jefferson do this? Well, he was a polymath, and he was one of the smartest people around. And in fact, when he did retire, he gave his library to Congress, which turned out to be the Library of Congress. So here is a pretty, well, I mean, it wasn't too hard of a job. I mean, we only had, 13, 14 states at that time. So it wasn't a big job to run the United States, but he did it. And it turns out to be, that was the Lewis and Clark expedition that spent years mapping things. In fact, at that point, when they got to the Pacific Ocean, they found that it was, oh my gosh, there's Russian sailing ships sitting here. Well, good thing we took that land when we decided to take the land. What's the point behind the story? The point behind the story is a leader, a prepared leader, enables the team. So enabling is a skill. You provide the knowledge, you provide the means, and you provide the opportunity for people to succeed. And when they succeed, then they help you. All right. So one of the skills is the skill of enabling. And I could go off onto a long tangent right now, but I just wrote a little piece on LinkedIn about, I'm just angry that CEOs get all this massive money. I mean, Tim Cook is a wonderful guy, but he doesn't deserve $100 million by himself. He's got a team behind him. And I think we need to spend more time enabling our team. Okay, end of that story. And then if we were in class together and this was a 1-day or a 2-day workshop, we would spend a lot of time talking about what could you do to improve your team. That's where this one would take us. Second story, it's the late 1850s. And I'd like you to imagine being a woman who wants to improve hospital conditions. There's this little thing going on at the time called the Crimean War. It kind of, it fits for today. The Crimea was a problem then, and it's a problem today. But she wanted to improve hospital conditions. But as I put down here, come on. Women cannot tell doctors and military officers what to do. I mean, she couldn't even go to nursing school. So she went to Bavaria and she got educated in nursing conditions. And then she went to the hospitals. And anybody want to tell me who this lady is? Then I'll tell you.
Nightingale.
Florence Nightingale, absolutely. The lady with the candle. But the thing that's really cool about her, she was not only a wonderful, wonderful, caring person, but she wanted to bring about change. So when she saw what was going on, and she went to the generals and she said, we've got to do something about the conditions here. And they kept putting things off. So she finally wrote the report that went into detailed statistics. And I'll comment on this in a little bit. So here's a lady from society who goes off and gets a medical education and goes off to war, and then comes back to England and figures out what to do. And then the report ends up with a major overhaul of the military care process. And here's the reason why. And here is the really cool thing about Florence Nightingale. She was driven by this decision to learn. So she had to learn medical issues. She had to learn how to deal with hospitals. She had to learn how to deal with the public. And now here's her reality. Her reality is she needs to bring about social change. But England at this point in time is not very literate. And so you can write articles, you can write this 1,000-page report, but how do you get people to drive for change? If you look at the picture there, that is actually a representation of one of her earliest graphs. She invented the pie chart. So there's the 12 months of the year, and the stuff that's in kind of green basically says, here are deaths due to hospital conditions. So the inner pieces of the pie slices are battlefield deaths or battlefield wounds that could not be survived. But the major portion of this was death due to poor hospital conditions, infections, primarily infections, okay? When you look at Florence Nightingale, the fact, I mean, she was just a wonderful, caring person. She became powerful because she kept on learning. And so one of the issues then that we would spend some time talking about in a workshop, how do you prepare yourself to get ready for the future? What do you need to learn? And sometimes when I do this thing and I got a room full of IT people, well, there are certain professions in the business world that think they are the smartest there is. So I'll just leave it at that. But all of us need to keep on learning in order to prepare ourselves for the future. So another skill, the skill of learning. And it's, at one point in time, I spent time at DePaul University, and lifelong learning was kind of a new term at that point. It's not a new term anymore. It is an absolute essential that we have to go through, okay? Now, another imagination journey. I want you to imagine leadership without formal authority. And when I do that, I bring up 3 pictures. And for those of us who are old enough, we can recognize Gandhi, and we can recognize Eleanor Roosevelt, and we can recognize Mandela. When I do this, when I've got some 20-year-olds in a room, most of them can get Mandela. They guess at Gandhi, and some of them are not, they're clueless with regard to Eleanor Roosevelt. The point behind the stories of these 3 people was they made the largest changes in the world without any formal authority. It's the power of persuasion. It was the power of communication. It was things such as that. The issue there, the skill is the skill of challenging. So when you think in terms of leaders in a world, we need to challenge ourselves, and we also need to challenge the status quo. The thing that's been fascinating to me ever since COVID kicked in was how unprepared we were for it. Although we had 10 years of epidemics around the world, MERS, SARS, Zika, measles, and on and on. And we just didn't challenge the status quo enough, and we ended up being unprepared. So 3 skills so far, 3 stories. Enabling is a skill, learning is a skill, challenging is a skill. Next story. Well, the point would be, so who do you challenge and what should you challenge? And then if I do this for a large corporation, this can take a long time, but we get into creating a hit list, so to speak. Okay, new story, 1947. Imagine you are Thor Heyerdahl, and he was a World War II resistance fighter who was disgusted with humanity. He said, I'm taking my family to the South Pacific and I'm going to live on an island. But then he got curious. He goes, all right, I'm in the middle of the South Pacific. How people get here? And he came up with a theory. And he said, I think they came from South America. And I think they came 4,000 miles on rafts. And all of the so-called experts said, you're nuts. Come on, give me a break. Well, what do you do if you're a World War II resistance fighter? How do you get people to listen? Well, you go do it. So he got a band of guys. It was all men. Sorry, I have to say the word guys. And they went to South America. They parachuted into the jungle. They cut down some trees. They floated the trees downriver. They put them together into a raft. And then they did it. 6 people, 6 men, 4,000 miles, 101 days. Now, this is 1947. So there is no GPS. There is no satellite cell phones. This is 6 guys in the middle of a raft in the middle of the Pacific. And if you'll notice the water, the raft is not very high. The trees they cut down were balsa wood, and balsa wood absorbed water. Now, the interesting thing about this story is they landed exactly where he said they would land, 101 days later. So this actually came out of a book I read when I was in high school. but it was a late 1940s book, I think, called Kon-Tiki. If you want to read a fascinating adventure, Kon-Tiki was a fascinating adventure. So that whole piece about what do you do if you are Thor Heyerdahl, you just go ahead and do it. So the prepared leader can imagine and then decide on a course of action, all right? Imagination is a key skill that is lacking in an awful lot of organizations. Although we want innovation, we think we can make innovation formal. And I'll talk about that at the very end in a minute. Bob, you may have some comments on this in a few minutes. Okay, 4 skills. Let me jump you to another. The work then would be, what should you accomplish in the coming year? And I want people in the workshops then always to spend some time imagining, push themselves out there, okay? News story. It's 1955, and Everest has not been conquered. Now, the question is, how the heck do you conquer a mountain? Well, you get to the top of it, all right? And so we all know that Thor Heyerdahl was the guy that got to the top first, along with Tenzing Norgay. But here's the story. The story is, I want you to imagine you are John Hunt. You're the project manager, okay? So Colonel John Hunt, a military dude, replaces a respected mountaineer at the very last minute. 7 previous British teams had failed. They had tried and failed. 2 Swiss teams failed in 52. Everest is booked for 54 and 55. And so now the question is, and when you get to the point of booked, here's the issue. After the Korean War, China closed off access to Everest from their side. So he had to come through Nepal. And Nepal is basically said, whoa, camping permits, dude. We'll give a country a year to get to the top, and you're going to pay us a bunch of money. And that's what they ended up doing. So how do you prepare? How do you prepare a group of people to get to the top of a mountain? You know you've got 1 year. And if we were in a class together, we would spend some time talking in terms of, well, you get the best equipment, you get the best mountaineers, you found out why things failed in the past, you do all kinds of other things. And all of the problem-solving issues are kind of the obvious issues. Look at people, look at equipment, look at routes, look at failures, and so on and so forth. What Hunt did was really kind of fascinating. He sent 2 teams. And the 2 teams were basically right behind each other. And the fascinating thing was, so on May 26th, Bordelon and Evans got to within 300 feet of the top, and their equipment failed. And they did the right thing. They turned back. Had they tried to get that last 100 yards, it would have turned into a rescue mission as opposed to a summit. They wouldn't have made it. They couldn't have made it. And so they did the right thing. I mean, think about this thing. And 3 days later, the 29th, Hillary and Tenzing Norgay get to the top. Now, Hillary and Tenzing Norgay deserve all of the accolades that they got, but they were the backup team, which is just, we forget about that. So from a project management perspective, we got to think in terms of different things we can do. And so this one is always kind of interesting. This is kind of personal to me in a sense, because my daughter-in-law was a mountaineer. She summited Denali, she summited Kilimanjaro, she summited Aconcagua, she's been to Everest, but now she's got a 1-year-old, so she's off the mountain. So I'm glad about that. Okay, anyway, prepared leaders, they reason with risk. And when we think in terms of corporations and their challenges that are in front of them, my experience is that although we've got a lot of people who like risk in the world of entrepreneurs and things such as that, we've got, excuse me, I got to turn my phone off. Okay, corporations tend to be risk adverse, and we need to do more of this thing. So one of the challenges there we would then spend time talking about Name a risk that you should accept and try in the coming year. Okay. So let's try another one. Let's try another skill. So in the world of military, so I told you I spent 5 years in the Marine Corps. So I've spent some time studying military history. Gallipoli was one of the great massive failures of World War I. And we had the Brits and the Kiwis had basically thought that the Turks were going to run away from them, and they didn't. And it was just a terrible campaign, and it destroyed Winston Churchill's reputation. He had been the architect behind that. If you studied the history, you see basically maybe his plan wasn't so bad, but the generals and the admirals were stupid. And they just didn't, I'll just leave it at that. Okay. So if you're Winston Churchill, then what do you do with your career? All right. Well, you spend some time reflecting. What went right? What went wrong? What was my role? And then you get on with the future, because we're all going to screw up at some point in life. And we need this skill of reflection, and it's got to be an honest skill that's sitting out there. I had, at one point in my career, I was a vice president of a consulting organization. We had a large project that went bad. I fired the project manager, and it took me well over a year of sitting back every now and then and thinking about it. And I realized it was my fault. I put this guy in over his head. Unintentional, but I set him up for failure. And it ruined a friendship. I've apologized to him since then, and he will not talk to me, and I don't blame him. All right. So reflection, sometimes we like to think back and look at all the wonderful things we've done in life. But boy, if we're going to really reflect, we got to think in terms of the other side of that coin. Churchill is a good example in this particular one. So again, if I'm with the group of people, we're going to sit back and we're going to talk about reflection, successes and failures, and what was your role in that particular endeavor. Okay. There's a bunch of stories. Let me give you a couple more stories. Next story. Well, this would be courage to reflect on your failures. Madame Curie, another fascinating person, won 2 Nobel Prizes, 1903 in physics with her husband. He passed away in 1911 in chemistry by herself. But the really cool thing about her, first female professor at the University of Paris. If you go to the world of academia and you think in terms of the challenges that women have had over the years, to get a professorship at a premier university in whenever the heck it was, early on, was amazing. All right. Think about Madame Curie, and you got to think in terms of a scientist. Good thinkers, good people who are ready for their future, they observe, they watch the world around them. And part of her issue was curiosity, but she was just always figuring out what's going on. And in fact, that cost her life. She ended up with radiation poisoning because it was a kind of a hands-on thing at that point in time to deal with radioactive substances. Okay. So the question I would ask of the workshop then is, what needs your attention? And what do you need to observe? Part of the challenge, I think, when we get ready for the future, we can't simply say, well, I'll pay attention. We have to ask the question of what needs our attention. And we think in terms of that regard. Okay. Last story. I think it's the last story. 1997. You've just returned to Apple. Remember, Jobs got kicked out of Apple. He founded Apple. He got kicked out. He was rejected. They're in big trouble. They bring him back, and he basically does things that were crazy. I mean, he formed a partnership with his enemy. The fact of the matter is he had to go to Gates and say, I need some money. Can you lend me some money? And Gates basically took stock in Apple and paid off Apple doing some of that stuff. He reduced their product headcount. He went from a massive product line to a personal computer, a business computer, a personal laptop, and a business laptop. Brought it down to 4. And the quote that he had on that one is, deciding what not to do is as important as deciding what to do. And I think from an awful lot of business organizations, leaders don't want to just basically say, well, I'm going to stop doing something. Well, wouldn't it be nice if? Okay. So the exercise then is, you've got to know that decisions are needed. We can't just talk about the stuff. We have to actually make some very, very difficult decisions. And then the opportunity is for the people in the workshop. We spent some talking about what decisions need to be made. And we get out of the world of, wouldn't it be nice if? Okay. So there's 8 stories, there's 8 skills. They're all obvious. All right. We need to observe, we need to imagine, we need to, and you can read the list. Okay. When I've done workshops, and I've done a few hundred workshops, at the end of whatever the workshop is, we talk about, okay, obvious skills. Now tell me which ones aren't used here. And the thing that when it first happened to me, I thought I had some answers that were alike. I thought, oh, this is interesting. I got a coincidence here. And then I kept asking this question. And when I talked about underutilized skills, I kept getting pretty much the same answers. And whether it was United States or China or Japan or Europe or let's see, I did this in Buenos Aires. And so anyway, I get the same 3. We don't imagine enough, we don't reflect enough, and we don't challenge enough. Now, sometimes I'll get, slightly different ones, but these are the 3 that they show up pretty darn regularly. All right. And when we think in terms of imagination, like I said at the very beginning, we like to think in terms of, oh my gosh, we need innovation. Well, unfortunately, we try to take innovation and we try to make it a business model as opposed to let our imagination run wild. Just quick comment on this one. When I do this in an in-person workshop and I got a bunch of people in the room, I ask how many people have got a great imagination? And I'll get 3 hands out of 25 that shoot up, and then I'll get a few more people that will slowly raise their hand, and the rest of the people just stare at me. And then I say, all right, I want you to imagine yourself as 6 years old. Go back and remember when you were 6 years old and a large appliance is delivered to your house or to your apartment. And then I shut up. And sooner or later, within about 30 seconds, somebody yells out, the box. And then I say, what became of the box? Well, it could be a house, it could be a fort, it could be anything. And then just my real quick side story on this one is, at one point in time, I was doing this for a group of bankers. You know how when you've got a large group of people and they're all talking at once, and then they all get quiet at once, and then somebody is still talking. There was a senior vice president, and she just blurts out, it was a house, and Donny Osmond lived there. And I thought, ooh, I think Donny Osmond is still in her imagination. Okay. So anyway, there's the 3 of them. There's that. I'm done. Talk to me. What do we got to say? Eckert, you're smiling. I hope I hit on something there. I don't know what it was.
Well, I'm imagining her infatuation with Donny Osmond. That's all. So he lives there.
Yeah, he was there. So anyway, 8 skills of a prepared mind. The comment that was thrown out yesterday about somebody put on leadership and gave a list, and I commented on it. One of you came back and said communication, and that would be my 9th skill, or maybe that's the 0 skill, because if we can't communicate, nothing gets done. So anyway, okay, I'm done.
I have a question.
Sure.
Bill. So you said, after I had the little story, I get them in groups and they work on this, and sometimes it takes a long time. So what happens if they just kind of they're done in 20 minutes or somebody refuses to participate? In what ways do you, engage them, create more interaction if they don't seem to really be working hard enough at this?
Well, sometimes I'll do things such as like, I want a list of 10. And when they can give me something that is like, oh, they can rip through 5 or 6 of them right off the bat. And that's like, I said, we're not leaving here until I got a list of 10. and that draws them into it. And I normally don't have trouble getting people engaged in doing these exercises. They tend to be pretty much involved. But yeah, the list of 10 to me is always a way to drive them to give me more.
Absolutely. I like that. Thank you.
Bill, we also had, well, a long time ago, a few minutes ago, Gina had participated and said that Mary Seacole, she's also often overlooked, and she's a heroine of the Crimean War. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
I will have to
John
look
had
at
to
that.
say, John had to say that people need to be kept locked in dark cupboards and not let loose anywhere near the decision-making process. So Samantha responded, try doing workshops for a room full of tax people.
Yeah, it's different challenges that are sitting out there. I did this one time, this presentation, and I had a bunch of naval officers in the room, and I talked in terms of, I used submarine warfare as far as one of the issues that was with them, and they were upset with me, and I said, well, come on, here's the facts. Most of the shipping from the United States was sunk right off the coast of North America. And we had a bunch of admirals who did not want to learn because the Brits had figured it out earlier. And that I was persona non grata when I said that the Brits had better admirals than the United States did. Michelle, what you got your hand up? What's up?
First, thank you. I loved it. Not just the format of it, but the content, obviously. And two legs in my comment. First, I was relating to something you said about the backup team that conquered the Everest. It's funny because, as a fact, I don't know who of you knows about the X Prizes. The X Prizes are sort of I don't know how to describe it, but they're challenged to solve a societal problem, major problems, and what they realized is that no experts ever win the contest.
Right.
Because they engage with an expert mindset saying, I know it all. And it doesn't work. And it's funny because in 2014, I was coaching the Canadian karate team, and in my organization, we never set foot on the podium. And that particular year was not supposed to be different because we were there with the backup team. And we won for the first time. We got on the podium, we got bronze, escaping the gold from this match. But anyway, so I thought that it was interesting that it's the backup team that conquered the Everest. Thank you for this. The second leg of it, I'm a lot about performance, in human performance at large, not just sports, but businesses and those people who are leading those businesses. And about two of the three unutilized skills. One, I wrote them down, and you said, I will not talk about imagine, but reflect and challenge. What I've noticed, and it's more sharing, but it was enlightening to hear someone else talking about all this stuff. So thank you once again. But the thing is that I realized that in order to challenge yourself and reflect, you've got to practice extreme ownership. Otherwise, you're just putting excuses is the answer why people are not using reflect and challenge, because when they reflect, and if those of you read the book From Good to Great, good leaders, amazing leaders, when they're successful, they look at the window and say, we did it together.
Yeah.
And when there's a mistake, they look at them in the mirror saying, what did you do wrong? This capacity to reflect that is totally blocked by ego and excuses. Same with challenges. And Ryan Holiday, on one of his books, Courage is Calling, saying you need courage to challenge yourself. And some people are better at finding excuses than finding ways to do their stuff. Hey, it's impossible. It's too
Right.
this, do that. It's not under my, I cannot control this. Blah, blah, blah. So I think that was interesting. You fed me with a lot of interesting stuff, and thank you so much.
You're so welcome. By the way, if any of you want my slide deck, just send me an email or tell Victoria that you want it, and I'll send it along. So,
Bill,
you know,
have you put this in an article, like all of them in a more long form article, like on LinkedIn or on some blog somewhere?
actually,
You know,
what I did recently is I wrote a series from my blog post on each of the skills, but I did the flip. What happens if you don't observe? What happens if you don't enable? And they're very, very short, but I've got some material I can send it along if you'd like it. Be happy to.
It'd be interesting to see that, you know, it's like the deck helps, but your logic behind each one is, you know, that's the story that you tell to explain that. But that logic is good to hear as well, you know, and all of it totally aligns. I don't think any, like you said, they're extremely obvious, but at least to those of us that have been working in human performance for so long. But why is it that people have a hesitation, leaders have a hesitation to step into that responsibility? And I've been playing, you know, in the innovators' values that I ascribe, there's this one that in some ways it's the meta value. And I think, Michelle, you were speaking to it in a way. What'd you say? You have to have it. I heard it as you have to have an X game mentality or an extreme responsibility taking about that, and
Extreme ownership.
extreme ownership, right? And I'm thinking, you know, in the innovators' values, there's passion, and you know, I struggle with those. Like, what comes first? What's your thought about? If I was developing myself as a leader, or I'm coaching leaders, and they say, you know, I have growing edges in every one of these areas, and if they don't, I think they're deceiving themselves. We all do. So if you were trying to decide where to start, or you're working with the HR folks and they're saying, you know, we really want to integrate this into the way that we develop leaders in general here, and have our development program in alignment with this, and training programs kind of do this. Where do you think the beginning point is most typically with leaders or organizations trying to develop leaders within the different strategic, you know, I would call them strategic focus areas, but you know.
So actually, what I'm going to do, Michelle or Victoria, I'm going to send this to you so you can send it to everybody else. Here is basically a checklist that I put together, an assessment of here's the skill. Do you do this? Yes, no, or maybe. Common barriers and simple tools. And what I have done in the past is I've given this something similar to this to a group of people, and I said, if it's all green, you don't need any help at all. But if it's all red, I want you to work on the reds. And if it's yellow, well, we'll work on that. So I get people to kind of self-assess as to where they are on this. So Victoria, I'll get this to you. You can pass it on to everybody else.
Okay, yeah.
But Bob, I think it's not a skill. It's a virtue. I think leadership has got to start off with a little bit of humility. And part of that humility is knowing that you're not in this by yourself. So quick, we got 3 minutes. I would tell you a 3-minute story. I enlisted in the Marine Corps in 1966. In 1967, I had a chance to go through Officers Candidate School. I went through Officers Candidate School. I ended up as now a Brown Bar second lieutenant. My dad comes to my commissioning, and my dad was an old World War II sergeant. And I thought, okay, the old man is going to give me a snappy salute. And instead of the snappy salute, he comes up to me and he starts poking his finger into my chest. He says, your only job is to take care of your troops, and then they'll take care of you. best business advice I ever got. He had an 8th grade education, but he was a wise man. I guess if I put it that way, then I might take enabling as the first of the skills, because you're not alone. You need people to help you, and you've got to help them help you. So leaders without a team don't exist. I mean, that's just, come on. That's an academic. That's a person who studies something but doesn't do anything. Leaders need teams, and so you forced me to come up with a number one. I would use enabling as the number one. Thanks, I appreciate the push. Okay.
Thanks for that.
All right. So Bill, would you like me to forward the emails of the people that have been asking for your slides, or will you share the slides with me? And
I'll share the slides with you. I'll share this little thing with you. You'll get it all.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Jim would also like to say, well done. Thank you. The 8 skills idea is a winner.
Victoria, I have a quick request of the gang, if
Yes.
before we all sign off, if that's okay. Take me a
Yes.
minute to do it. Great. So we're playing around, y'all, with kind of the mission vision stuff, the emotionally motivating stuff that would be why we stay together. People are going to come and go at Elevate. We all know that. Many of us have been around enough to see that. Some will come in because they're simply looking for a channel to market. Those that are staying around are getting value from the collegiate stuff that we're doing here and believe in the overall mission of Elevate. Well, there's always the profit mission, right? So I'm not talking about that. So I'm playing with wording around that. And so it would be great if you felt compelled to do so. How would you, from the point of view of not the profit incentive, but the emotional incentive about why you're engaged with Elevate and what you would like Elevate to be? Think out a few years from now, and people are talking about what Elevate has become. What is this thing that we are doing? What is the mission, the vision that would be inspiring from what you're seeing? Where's our capability as a group, and what might we do for the world? So if you've got thoughts on that, I'm looking and I'm playing with words. You want to send me an email, that would be great, or a message on LinkedIn, whichever way we're connected the easiest. That'd be fantastic. I will put my email in the chat box for you. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. I just received your message. I have a quick request.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Great.
Okay, I'm going to be leaving in the chat box our most recent LinkedIn post that Bill mentioned earlier before about the leadership traits. So it'd be wonderful if you can come on and participate and let us know what you think. And for those that have been asking for the slides and Bill's content, I'll be sending it to you shortly after this workshop. So thank you very much for joining. If there's anybody that would like to add to this, if not, I think that we could say bye.
Have a good weekend. Bye.
You
You.
too.
Huh?
I hope
We-
everybody has a wonderful
Bye-bye,
weekend.
everyone.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye
Thank
now.
you.
Thanks, Bill.
You're
Everybody,
welcome.
thank you.
Thank you, Bill.